The Mexican Mafia, or La Eme, has ruled the California prison system and the streets with an iron grip for decades. Known for its ruthless enforcement of loyalty, the organization operates under a strict and unforgiving code. Once you're in, there's only one way out: death. This code has led to countless betrayals, power struggles, and internal purges as the organization continuously cleans house to maintain discipline and control. Over the years, many once powerful figures within La Eme have found themselves on the wrong side of this violent equation. This is the story of those lost soldiers, men who rose to prominence within La Eme, but ultimately met a brutal fate at the hands of their own. La Eme was founded in the late 1950s by a group of young Mexican-American inmates at Dewell Vocational Institution in Tracy, California, seeking protection from other prison gangs and a way to consolidate power. These men established a secretive and highly organized syndicate that would go on to dominate not only prison yards, but also entire street-level drug operations. The foundation of La Eme's power rested on several key factors. 1. Ethnic and cultural identity as a unifying force. La Eme was created primarily by Chicano prisoners who felt marginalized within the prison system. Unlike black and white prison gangs, Mexican-American inmates lacked a strong organization to protect and represent them. By forming La Eme, these early members gave themselves a sense of identity and belonging. The gang's symbols, such as the number 13, representing the letter M in the alphabet, became a badge of pride and a marker of allegiance. This cultural unity was a significant factor in La Eme's rapid rise. While other prison gangs often struggled with internal divisions, La Eme members bonded over their shared heritage and commitment to their people. This helped them recruit extensively from Mexican-American street gangs, ensuring a steady flow of fresh soldiers who were loyal and willing to fight for the cause. 2. Absolute control through violence and fear. From its earliest days, La Eme established itself as a gang that ruled with an iron fist. Members quickly realized that in a prison environment where brute force dictated survival, they had to be more ruthless than their enemies. Unlike other gangs that focused solely on self-protection, La Eme actively sought to dominate the prison system through terror and calculated violence. They enforced a strict code. Any sign of disrespect or betrayal was met with immediate and brutal retribution. This not only kept members in line, but also ensured that rival groups feared them. Prison officials, recognizing the deadly efficiency of La Eme's operations, often tried to break the gang's influence by transferring its members to different facilities. However, this only served to spread their presence further, effectively helping the organization grow. 3. The establishment of criminal enterprises. Unlike many prison gangs that focused purely on survival and protection, La Eme had bigger ambitions. Early on, its leaders recognized the potential of controlling drug trafficking, extortion, and gambling within the prison system. By monopolizing these operations, La Eme turned itself into a lucrative criminal empire. Through connections with street gangs and cartel suppliers, La Eme was able to flood prisons with drugs, charging other inmates high prices for access. They enforced a tax on all illicit activities, ensuring that any drug dealer operating inside or outside of prison had to pay tribute to the organization. Failure to comply resulted in swift and often fatal consequences. As their influence grew, La Eme extended its reach beyond prison walls. Paroled members acted as enforcers and business operators on the outside, maintaining control over gang territories and funneling profits back to incarcerated leaders. This structure ensured that even members serving life sentences retained power, directing operations from behind bars. 4. A strict hierarchy and code of conduct. One of La Eme's greatest strengths was its highly disciplined hierarchy. Unlike loosely structured street gangs, La Eme operated with a clear chain of command. At the top were the carnales, brothers, the fully initiated members who made key decisions and controlled the organization's affairs. Beneath them were associates, potential recruits, and foot soldiers who carried out orders. The initiation process was brutal and selective. New members had to prove their worth through violent acts, often involving murder or extreme loyalty tests. Once initiated, members were expected to follow strict rules, including absolute loyalty to La Eme above all else. A commitment to secrecy, snitching or cooperating with authorities was punishable by death. Obedience to orders, regardless of personal feelings. Willingness to kill if required. By maintaining this rigid structure, La Eme ensured that its members remained disciplined and loyal. Anyone who deviated from the code was swiftly eliminated, reinforcing the gang's reputation for being both feared and respected. 5. Strategic alliances and power moves. La Eme also solidified its power by forming key alliances and eliminating threats before they could grow. In the early years, they aligned with the Aryan Brotherhood, a white supremacist gang, to maintain dominance over prisons. This alliance was based on mutual benefit. La Eme controlled Latino inmates, while the Aryan Brotherhood controlled white inmates, and both shared profits from criminal enterprises. At the same time, La Eme waged war against emerging rivals. One of their biggest conflicts was with Nuestra Familia, a prison gang formed by Northern California inmates who felt mistreated by La Eme's Southern California dominance. This rivalry led to decades of bloodshed and reinforced La Eme's reputation as an unforgiving organization. As La Eme grew, so did the internal conflicts. Power struggles became common, with ambitious members often making moves to gain more influence. However, in an organization where loyalty was conditional, these power plays frequently ended in bloodshed. Many early members who helped build La Eme's empire were later deemed threats and executed. The organization continuously cleaned house to remove anyone who might jeopardize its stability. This ruthless cycle ensured that only the most disciplined and strategic individuals remained at the top, while those who miscalculated their moves met violent ends. The foundation of La Eme's power was built on cultural unity, extreme violence, a profitable criminal enterprise, a strict hierarchy, and strategic alliances. However, the very same principles that helped the organization grow also made it a breeding ground for betrayal and internal purges. As history has shown, the price of power in La Eme is often paid in blood. The fall of Joe Pegleg Morgan, La Eme's white godfather. Despite being of Croatian descent, Joe Pegleg Morgan was one of the most respected and influential leaders within La Eme. His strategic mind and ruthlessness earned him a place at the top of the organization, and he played a pivotal role in expanding La Eme's influence beyond prison walls. However, even Morgan was not immune to the internal politics of the Mexican Mafia, though he died of natural causes in 1993. His leadership style set a precedent, one that would later lead to the downfall of many who tried to consolidate too much power for themselves. 1. A unique outsider who became an insider. Joe Morgan's rise within La Eme was unprecedented. While La Eme was strictly a Mexican-American organization, Morgan, a Croatian with no Mexican heritage, managed to gain full membership due to his intelligence, brutality, and business acumen. He spoke fluent Spanish, grew up among Chicano gang members, and was fully accepted by La Eme's leadership. Morgan's expertise in drug trafficking made him invaluable. He established connections with major suppliers, creating a profitable network that funneled drugs into California prisons. His ability to negotiate and enforce deals gave La Eme an edge over rival gangs and even cartels operating at the time. However, his status as a non-Mexican member would later become a point of contention among younger La Eme members. 2. The expansion of La Eme's influence. Under Morgan's influence, La Eme expanded beyond prison walls in ways previously unseen. While La Eme had always maintained some level of street presence, it was Morgan who formalized a structure that allowed members on the outside to continue operation in sync with incarcerated leaders. He was instrumental in implementing the taxation system on street gangs, forcing smaller gangs to pay tribute in exchange for protection and the right to operate. Morgan also cultivated relationships with the Aryan Brotherhood, ensuring that La Eme had allies among white prison gangs. This alliance helped both groups dominate prison yards, with the Aryan Brotherhood providing support in racial conflicts, while La Eme took control of the drug trade. However, these moves made Morgan powerful, perhaps too powerful in the eyes of others. 3. Internal struggles and growing resentment. As La Eme continued to grow, internal conflicts began to emerge. Younger members saw Morgan's leadership as outdated and questioned why a non-Mexican held such influence. Some viewed his alliances with outside organizations as a threat to La Eme's independence, believing that he was prioritizing personal business interests over the gang's traditional code. Moreover, Morgan's increasing wealth and power created friction. While he remained incarcerated, his control over drug routes and financial dealings gave him influence beyond prison walls. Other high-ranking members, especially those on the outside, felt that they were being overshadowed by someone who was supposed to be behind bars. 4. The shift against Morgan. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, Morgan's grip on La Eme began to wane. His old-school leadership style clashed with newer members who were more reckless and driven by immediate profit rather than long-term strategy. His emphasis on discipline and structured operations did not sit well with younger, more violent members who wanted faster results. Some members even speculated that Morgan was too focused on maintaining relationships with cartels and white prison gangs, rather than securing La Eme's autonomy. Though he was not directly targeted for execution, the growing divide within La Eme weakened his influence considerably. Death and legacy. In 1993, Joe "Pegleg" Morgan died of cancer at Corcoran State Prison. While he was never assassinated, his decline marked a turning point in La Eme's evolution. After his death, the organization saw a shift toward a more chaotic and fragmented structure, with internal betrayals and increased violence becoming the norm. Morgan's death left a power vacuum that various factions sought to fill. Without his disciplined leadership, La Eme became more volatile, with younger members lacking the strategic foresight that had once made the organization so formidable. His era was marked by calculated moves and long-term planning. After his passing, the group became more reactive and unstable. Though he was an outsider by birth, Morgan's impact on La Eme was undeniable. He shaped the organization into a major criminal empire, built lucrative drug trade connections, and established key alliances that kept the group strong for decades. However, his eventual loss of control demonstrated the inevitable fate of any leader within La Eme. No one stays on top forever. Morgan's story is a testament to the ruthless, ever-changing nature of La Eme. No matter how powerful or respected a member is, the cycle of leadership, betrayal, and purging continues, making it clear that in the world of La Eme, the only certainty is that the next lost soldier is always waiting in line. The assassination of Black Dan Barreto, one of the earliest examples of La Eme purging its own, occurred with Daniel Black Dan Barreto. A highly respected member, Barreto had established significant connections outside of prison, facilitating large-scale drug operations. However, his refusal to follow direct orders and his growing independent power made him a liability. La Eme's leaders saw him as a potential threat, and in a move that shocked many, he was brutally executed by his own men. His death sent a clear message. No one, regardless of their rank, was safe if they challenged the hierarchy. 1. The rise of Black Dan Barreto. Daniel Black Dan Barreto was not just another foot soldier in La Eme. He was a key figure in the organization's early expansion, helping to build its influence both inside and outside of prison. His charisma and ability to move weight, drugs, through various networks made him an invaluable asset. Unlike other members who focused solely on prison operations, Barreto had a sharp mind for business and logistics. His deep connections with cartel suppliers and street gangs made him one of La Eme's most powerful figures. Barreto operated with a sense of autonomy that made some La Eme leaders uneasy. While he paid tribute and showed respect to the organization's hierarchy, his independent success put a target on his back. His ability to generate wealth and maintain influence without relying on the top-ranking members was seen as both an asset and a potential liability. 2. The expansion and tensions. Barreto's rise to prominence came during a time of transition for La Eme. The organization was shifting from being a strictly prison-based gang to one that controlled significant street-level operations. Barreto's entrepreneurial mindset played a major role in this evolution. He was instrumental in brokering deals that expanded La Eme's influence beyond California, linking with suppliers from Mexico and working closely with street gangs that operated in cities like Los Angeles, San Diego, and Phoenix. However, as his power and wealth grew, so did tensions with the leadership. Traditionalists within La Eme viewed Barreto's operations as a potential threat. Unlike many La Eme members who strictly adhered to the organization's rigid structure, Barreto often made executive decisions without consulting the higher-ups. This independence was tolerated for a while, as long as money continued flowing, but it was never fully accepted by La Eme's core leadership. 3. The breaking point. Defiance and betrayal. The downfall of Black Dan Barreto can be traced back to a key moment of defiance. In a high-level meeting among La Eme members, Barreto was reportedly ordered to step back from certain street operations and allow others to take control of his networks. Instead of complying, he challenged the decision, arguing that he had built these connections himself and had a right to manage them as he saw fit. This act of defiance was seen as outright insubordination. While La Eme allowed some level of independence, outright questioning of authority was unacceptable. The leadership began viewing Barreto not as an asset, but as a liability. Rumors started spreading that he was planning to break away or establish his own independent network, an unforgivable offense in La Eme's world. The final straw came when Barreto allegedly withheld a portion of drug profits that were meant to be funneled back into La Eme's prison operations. Whether this was a deliberate act of defiance or a misunderstanding is unclear, but the leadership took it as an act of betrayal. The decision was made. Barreto had to be eliminated. Chapter 4. The Execution. A Message to All. On a seemingly normal day, Barreto was summoned for what he believed was a business discussion. Instead, he walked into a death trap. His own men, those he had fought alongside and trusted, turned on him without hesitation. The hit was swift and brutal, a calculated execution designed to send a message to anyone else who might consider stepping out of line. His body was found riddled with stab wounds, a signature La Eme execution method. The message was clear. No one, no matter how powerful, was above the organization's rules. Barreto's assassination was a stark reminder that in La Eme, loyalty to the hierarchy mattered more than individual success. 5. The Aftermath. Lessons from Barreto's fall. The execution of Black Dan Barreto reinforced several hard truths about La Eme. Independence is dangerous. No matter how much wealth or influence a member accumulates, La Eme operates on strict loyalty. Those who attempt to navigate outside of its control are marked for death. Respecting the chain of command is non-negotiable. Barreto's refusal to follow direct orders sealed his fate. Questioning authority within La Eme is often a fatal mistake. Betrayal, real or perceived, has severe consequences. Whether Barreto truly planned to break away, or if leadership simply saw him as a threat, the end result was the same. He was eliminated to preserve the organization's structure. Barreto's death had a chilling effect on other ambitious members within La Eme. It reminded everyone that no one, regardless of status or financial contributions, was beyond the reach of the organization's discipline. His story became a cautionary tale for those who sought too much power too quickly. The cycle of blood continues. La Eme's history is filled with men like Black Dan Barreto, once powerful figures who, for one reason or another, became liabilities. As the organization evolves, the same patterns continue. Members rise, challenge authority, and are ultimately eliminated. The brutal enforcement of discipline ensures La Eme's longevity, but it also creates an environment where no one is ever truly safe. In the world of La Eme, power is fleeting, and betrayal, real or imagined, can come at any moment. Barreto's fate serves as yet another reminder that within the Mexican Mafia, the only certainty is that the next lost soldier is always waiting in line. Rodolfo Cheyenne Cadena, a visionary who miscalculated. Perhaps the most infamous internal execution in La Eme's history was that of Rodolfo Cheyenne Cadena. Cheyenne was a visionary leader who sought to expand La Eme's influence by forging alliances with other Latino prison gangs, particularly Nuestra Familia. However, this idea was seen as a betrayal by the other leaders of La Eme, who viewed Nuestra Familia as sworn enemies. His attempts to broker peace were perceived as a weakness, and La Eme decided he had to go. 1. The rise of Rodolfo Cheyenne Cadena Cheyenne. Cadena was one of La Eme's most charismatic and influential figures. Born into the violent streets of Los Angeles, he quickly made a name for himself in both the criminal underworld and the prison system. He was respected not only for his brutality, but also for his intelligence. qualities that made him a natural leader within La Eme. As a rising star, Cadena envisioned La Eme evolving beyond a prison-based gang into a powerful, politically structured criminal empire. He believed that by uniting various Latino prison gangs under a single banner, La Eme could wield even greater influence both inside and outside of prison. His strategy involved extending an olive branch to Nuestra Familia, the Northern California-based prison gang that had long been at odds with La Eme too. The attempted alliance with Nuestra Familia. During the early 1970s, Cheyenne began reaching out to Nuestra Familia leaders, hoping to create a unified front among Latino inmates. He argued that internal conflicts between La Eme and Nuestra Familia only served to weaken their collective power, while allowing white and black prison gangs to maintain control over certain prison operations. Cadena's diplomatic efforts were met with both interest and skepticism. Some Nuestra Familia members saw the potential benefits of an alliance, but others doubted La Eme's intentions. Meanwhile, within La Eme, Cadena's efforts were viewed as outright treason. The organization had spent years warring with Nuestra Familia, and many members saw no reason to negotiate with their sworn enemies. 3. The growing resentment against Cheyenne. As rumors of Cadena's negotiations spread, resentment within La Eme grew. Many high-ranking members felt that Cadena's vision of unity was a direct challenge to the organization's long-standing power structure. They saw him as a leader who had overstepped his bounds and jeopardized La Eme's dominance by attempting to share power with another organization. Additionally, some members suspected that Cadena's true motive was not unity, but personal power. By brokering a deal with Nuestra Familia, he could position himself as the supreme leader of a new, larger organization. This paranoia, combined with La Eme's zero-tolerance policy for independent decision-making, sealed his fate. 4. The setup and execution. In December 1972, while serving time at Chino Prison, Cadena was moved to a unit dominated by Nuestra Familia members. This transfer was no accident. It was a calculated move orchestrated by La Eme leadership, who had given the green light for his elimination. The attack was brutal. As soon as Cadena was placed among Nuestra Familia inmates, he was ambushed. The details of his murder are horrific. He was stabbed repeatedly, beaten, and left to die in one of the most gruesome prison killings in California history. His body was dragged across the tier and displayed as a warning to others who might attempt to challenge the established order. 5. The aftermath. What Cadena's death meant for La Eme Cheyenne's death was a turning point for La Eme. His assassination reaffirmed the organization's commitment to maintaining absolute control over its members and crushing any perceived acts of insubordination. It also solidified La Eme's rivalry with Nuestra Familia, ensuring that peace between the two groups would never be an option. In the years following Cadena's murder, La Eme doubled down on its violent tactics, using his death as an example of what happens to those who step out of line. The organization's leadership became even more insular, making it clear that no member, no matter how respected, was beyond the reach of La Eme's deadly discipline. Ericus, the legacy of Rodolfo Cheyenne Cadena. Despite his violent demise, Cadena's story remains one of the most fascinating in La Eme's history. His vision of a united Latino prison movement was ahead of its time, and while it ultimately cost him his life, his legacy continues to influence discussions about gang power dynamics. Today, Cheyenne is remembered in two ways: as a visionary who sought to change the game, and as a cautionary tale about the dangers of defying La Eme's unbreakable hierarchy. His life and death serve as a stark reminder that in the Mexican Mafia, even the most influential leaders can be removed in an instant. The cycle of blood continues. La Eme's history is filled with men like Rodolfo, Cheyenne, Cadena, once powerful figures who, for one reason or another, became liabilities. As the organization evolves, the same patterns continue. Members rise, challenge authority, and are ultimately eliminated. The brutal enforcement of discipline ensures La Eme's longevity, but it also creates an environment where no one is ever truly safe. In the world of La Eme, power is fleeting, and betrayal, real or imagined, can come at any moment. Cadena's fate serves as yet another reminder that within the Mexican Mafia, the only certainty is that the next lost soldier is always waiting in line. Frank "Puppet" Martinez was another high-ranking La Eme member who learned the hard way that no one was untouchable. Martinez had gained considerable power both inside and outside of prison, managing drug sales, extortion, and enforcement operations. However, his increasing paranoia led him to make enemies within the organization. He began questioning the loyalty of his own associates, which in turn led to whispers that he himself was a threat. 1. The rise of Frank "Puppet" Martinez Puppet. Martinez was one of La Eme's most ambitious enforcers. From the moment he became a fully initiated member, he displayed a rare combination of intelligence, brutality, and business savvy. He quickly worked his way up the ranks, overseeing drug trafficking operations both inside prison walls and on the streets. Martinez understood the power of alliances and positioned himself as a key intermediary between La Eme and various street gangs. His ability to generate profits and maintain discipline made him a valued member. However, it also created jealousy and unease among his peers. His rapid rise within the organization, coupled with his tendency to make unilateral decisions, put him on the radar of La Eme's leadership. 2. The beginning of paranoia. As Martinez accumulated power, he became increasingly paranoid. He was constantly looking over his shoulder, suspecting that members within his own circle were plotting against him. His paranoia led him to make drastic moves, including eliminating associates he believed were threats, even if there was little evidence to support his suspicions. La Eme operates on strict rules of respect and loyalty, and Martinez's growing distrust started to create cracks in the organization. His erratic behavior raised concerns among senior members, some of whom began to question whether Puppet had become more of a liability than an asset. 3. The fatal mistake. Challenging the leadership, one of the most dangerous moves a La Eme member can make is to question the authority of its leadership. Martinez, fueled by his paranoia, began to challenge decisions made by the organization's top figures. He argued that he should have greater control over certain operations and accused others of betraying the organization. This was a grave mistake. La Eme does not tolerate dissent, especially from members who have not yet reached the highest echelons of power. His accusations and erratic decision-making were seen as a direct threat to the organization's stability. 4. The decision to remove Puppet. As tensions grew, La Eme's leadership came to a unanimous decision. Martinez had to go. His paranoia, unpredictability, and reckless actions had made him a liability. A hit was ordered, and members closest to him were given the task of carrying out the execution. The hit was planned with precision. Martinez was lured into a false sense of security. led to believe that he was attending a meeting to discuss business. Instead, he was ambushed by men he had once considered his brothers. The attack was swift and merciless, a standard execution method within La Eme, brutal, efficient, and meant to send a message. 5. The aftermath. What Puppet's death meant for La Eme Martinez execution reinforced several key principles within La Eme. No one is untouchable. No matter how powerful a member becomes, they are still subject to the organization's rules and hierarchy. Paranoia is a death sentence. La Eme thrives on structure and loyalty. Excessive suspicion and internal accusations disrupt order and often lead to elimination. Challenging leadership is fatal. Those who question authority or attempt to carve out independent power structures are swiftly dealt with. Martinez's downfall was a cautionary tale. While he was once a respected and feared member, his inability to control his paranoia ultimately sealed his fate. His death was not just an execution. It was a reminder to others that the Mexican Mafia values discipline and structure above all else. 6. The cycle of power and blood continues. La Eme's history is filled with men like Frank Puppet Martinez, individuals who rose quickly, tasted power, and then fell just as fast. His story, like many before and after him, demonstrates the ruthless efficiency with which La Eme removes those it perceives as threats. Power within La Eme is never permanent. Betrayal, real or imagined, can be a death sentence. Martinez's fate serves as yet another example of the unforgiving nature of the Mexican Mafia. As long as La Eme exists, the cycle of power, paranoia, and execution will continue, ensuring that there will always be another lost soldier waiting in line. The unforgiving death of Arturo Tablas. Castellanos. Arturo Tablas Castellanos was a name that carried weight both inside and outside the prison walls. A calculated and highly intelligent leader, he played a crucial role in structuring La Eme's operations, particularly in the 1990s and early 2000s. However, even the most powerful figures in the Mexican Mafia are not immune to its deadly politics. Castellanos' story is one of power, deception, and ultimately, betrayal. 1. The rise of Arturo Tablas. Castellanos Tablas was not just another enforcer, he was a strategist, rising through the ranks due to his ability to coordinate street operations and maintain a direct line to prison leadership. He was instrumental in solidifying La Eme's taxation system on street gangs. His ability to organize and execute directives made him indispensable to La Eme's higher-ups. Tablas was also known for his ability to manipulate situations to his advantage. He played different factions within La Eme against each other, ensuring his position remained secure. His influence extended beyond prison walls as he controlled a network of street-level operatives who reported directly to him. 2. The era of business over brutality. During Tablas's reign, La Eme became increasingly business-oriented. While violence was still a necessary tool, he encouraged members to focus on profitability. Under his guidance, taxation of street gangs became more structured, and alliances with drug cartels were strengthened. He played a significant role in coordinating large-scale drug shipments into California, ensuring that La Eme remained a dominant force in the state's underworld. However, Not everyone within La Eme agreed with this shift. Many of the older, more violent members saw the emphasis on business as a sign of weakness. They believed that La Eme's power came from fear, not just financial influence. These ideological differences began to create fractures within the organization. 3. The power struggle and internal enemies. As Tablas's influence grew, so did the number of his enemies. Some members resented his structured, business-first approach. Others saw his growing power as a threat to their own ambitions. His ability to outmaneuver rivals made him dangerous, and whispers of betrayal began to circulate. One of the main points of contention was his relationship with the younger generation of La Eme associates. Tablas favored newer members who understood the importance of financial gain over senseless violence. This created resentment among older members who believed that La Eme's original values were being abandoned. 4. The decision to eliminate Tablas. The moment Tablas became too powerful, La Eme's leadership decided he had to be removed. It was not just about business, it was about control. His ability to manipulate situations, his preference for financial operations over violence, and his growing independence made him a liability. An order was sent down. His enemies orchestrated a situation in which he would be vulnerable, ensuring that his execution would be swift and final. He had underestimated how quickly power could shift within La Eme's structure. 5. The execution, a warning to future leaders. Tablas's death was brutal. Unlike some other La Eme members who were taken out in the streets, his execution was meant to send a message. He was found stabbed multiple times, his body left as a grim reminder that no one, regardless of status or intellect, was beyond La Eme's reach. His assassination marked a turning point. It was a declaration that old-school La Eme values still ruled over modern business tactics. The organization had reaffirmed that above all else, loyalty and discipline were paramount. Anyone who was perceived as a threat to the traditional power structure would be eliminated. 6. The aftermath. What Tablas's death meant for La Eme. Tablas's execution reinforced several hard truths within La Eme. Brains alone won't save you. While intelligence and strategy are valuable, La Eme is ultimately ruled by those who maintain control through fear and obedience. Business can't replace violence. The attempt to shift La Eme into a business-driven organization clashed with its deeply ingrained culture of discipline and retribution. Power shifts quickly. No matter how strong a member is, once they are perceived as a threat, they will be removed without hesitation. Tablas had envisioned a more structured and financially driven La Eme, but his assassination proved that the organization's violent roots could never be fully abandoned. His death was a stark reminder that even the most influential leaders could be taken down at a moment's notice. The cycle of blood never ends like those before him. Arturo Tablas Castellanos learned too late that La Eme's power structure is unforgiving. His death marked yet another instance of internal purging, ensuring that no single individual could ever overshadow the organization itself. In the world of La Eme, history continues to repeat itself. Those who rise too high eventually fall, and new figures will always emerge to replace the fallen. The Mexican Mafia's cycle of power and betrayal ensures that its legacy endures, one lost soldier at a time. The history of La Eme is littered with the bodies of those who failed to stay in line. The organization's ability to self-purge and maintain discipline has ensured its survival for decades. However, as new generations take the reins, the same patterns continue to emerge. Leaders rise, internal struggles unfold, and eventually, someone gets eliminated. The cycle of violence within La Eme is relentless, and the lost soldiers of the past serve as a grim reminder that in the Mexican Mafia, no one is truly safe. As law enforcement continues its war against organized crime, and as internal betrayals persist, one thing remains certain. La Eme will continue to clean house, ensuring that its code of silence and ruthless discipline endures for generations to come.